Well, hello, and welcome to episode 178 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, not too long ago, we talked about film Jerry Maguire by Cameron Crowe, right? Had a couple of Oscar noms there. Best Picture, being the big one, but also Best Original Screenplay. But Cameron Crowe didn't win that one. But he would just a couple years later win one for Almost Famous, which is funny because, you ask people about all these quotable movies of all time, and Jerry Maguire is definitely up there. And then you ask people
Yeah,
about Almost Famous, and what do they say? Slam and soundtrack.
slam a soundtrack, and they should say it. Look, Cameron Crowe is pretty famous for putting music to movies in a really special way. I, for one, love the soundtrack to Jerry Maguire, actually. But Singles, everybody loves Singles, and he did
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Yep.
He is just he's got
Can
this
confirm.
massive respect level. He gets music that I don't think anybody else can. That's a whole process as a director. But this film was very special because it combined like this kind of personal story of Cameron Crowe's, and it was semi-autobiographical of his time and how he was coming up in finding himself and growing up, but in a really special place and time, right? Which is California in, the 70s, in the middle of like the birth or death of rock and roll. However,
Yeah, absolutely. It does examine kind of this time in rock and roll that is very, on one hand nostalgic for people, but also romanticized by a lot of people, especially people who love music. And that's definitely the telling that we're getting into here in Almost Famous in this coming of age story. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's cocktail.
so Brian, when we were looking for cocktails for this, I scoured the internet and I thought this was a really cool riff on the Naked and Famous, which is kind of funny because while nobody gets naked, we do see a lot of famous people in Almost Famous, and it's
Hmm.
aptly called
Hmm.
the Almost Famous. It's crafted by Laura Bishop. It's from the Navy Strength Bar in Seattle, Washington.
It is, yeah.
If we were able to travel there, I think it'd be really fun to get this drink at that bar. That'd be cool.
It would be really fun. Yeah. Actually, we're just in Seattle, your husband and I, to see Pearl Jam, and we were just around the corner from this bar. But unfortunately, our trip was pretty short, so we didn't get a chance to make it in there. But had I known that they had this cocktail, I definitely would have made time because this cocktail is delicious. On the surface, Michaela, sounds like might not be that great, to be completely honest. You're like, I don't know how those flavors are going to meld together, but trust me, they do. They do. So into a shaker tin, you're going to put equal parts of all of these in here. So 1 ounce of lime juice, 1 ounce of Aperol, 1 ounce of yellow chartreuse, and 1 ounce of overproof Jamaica rum. I used the Bacardi Hurricane Proof for mine, but kind of use whatever kind of higher proof rum you have there. Go ahead and shake that with some ice and then strain it into like a coupe or a martini glass, drink and enjoy. Like I said, I wasn't sure how these flavors were going to come together, right? So you have like a high proof rum, it's a little bit fiery tasting. You have Aperol, which is a little bit bitter. You have some yellow chartreuse, which has every flavor under the sun in there. And then a noble lime, has given its juice up for this cocktail. But I have to tell you, this was delicious. Thank you so much,
Uh,
Laura Bishop.
Thank you, Laura Bishop. I'm so glad you liked it. So I saw this and was like, oh, it's got Aperol, which I know you really like, Brian. Yellow chartreuse. That's going to be something that we probably talk about in depth in a lobby bar month at some point because all the chartreuses are kind of cool. Yellow is different than green. It tastes a little bit different, and it's also much easier to find now, apparently. I thought that this was going to be way too bitter or sour to really be enjoyable, if I'm
Mm.
honest, but
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
wrong. So I'm traveling. I had to go to a very nice cocktail bar to request this because I am traveling. And so I wasn't able to kind of buy, it made no sense to buy a bottle of rum and chartreuse and not be able to take it back home with me on the plane. So I did find somebody that would make this for me, and it was delicious. It was so good. And I am so glad in its simplicity. It just requires these ingredients, but this is something that you could really enjoy at any time because it's four things, super easy to put together. The rum, depending on the rum, you could do a spiced rum if you wanted to. If you wanted, I think that would muddle things a little bit.
Hmm.
So I would not necessarily recommend it. but I was thinking about that when I was trying to explain what I wanted to the bartender. That was a question they asked: is could you do it with a spiced rum? You could, I wouldn't. But it's definitely packing a punch, which makes sense because Almost Famous kind of creeps up on you, and then at the end you're kind of flushed with like a flurry of different emotions and coming full circle and all of these things, and that's kind of how this drink feels to me.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. It's there's a lot going on in it, but the flavors all balance out so nicely. I thought maybe you got this cocktail when Zoe Deschanel gave you just a sack full of recipe books, hidden under your bed. So I don't know if that's where you get this one from or not. So yeah, definitely make this up. Definitely try it out, and definitely go to the Navy Strength Bar in Seattle if you're out that way, and let us know what you think about having one of these directly from the source out there. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We have a lot of music to talk about. And we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, Almost Famous.
God, it's gonna get ugly, man. They're gonna buy you drinks. You're gonna meet girls. They're gonna try to fly you places for free, offer you drugs. And I know it sounds great, but these people are not your friends. You know, these are people who want you to write sanctimonious stories about the genius of rock stars, and they will ruin rock and roll and strangle everything we love about it. You know, because they're trying to buy respectability for a form that is gloriously and righteously dumb.
Spoiler warning for Almost Famous. If you've not yet seen this film, we're going to talk about all the things. And while there's not a big surprise at the end, it might bum you out if you're listening to it and hadn't seen it because you want to experience a lot of this firsthand. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So if you've not yet seen Almost Famous, you should. You should press pause right now. You should go watch it. You should go make yourself a Almost Famous cocktail, and then you can come back and have us chat about it.
That's right. Yeah. And if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, you've had plenty of opportunity because this was released in the year 2000. It was written and directed by Cameron Crowe, and it starts Patrick Fugit as William Miller, Frances McDormand as his overprotective mother, Elaine, Kate Hudson as the girl who he loves but is in love with music, Penny Lane, and Billy Crudup as Russell, the contentious leader of Stillwater, the band that William is going to be reporting on. So, Michaela, this movie is a pretty big deal, right? Nominated for 4 Academy Awards. For Best Editing, and 2 nominations for Supporting Actress for Kate Hudson and Frances McDormand, and then it won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Cameron Crowe. This was the second time, I believe, being nominated for that. Was nominated as well for Jerry Maguire. Didn't win, so just a couple years later, 3 years on, have another crack at it, and it takes home the prize here. But it took home a much bigger prize than any Academy Award. It won the Grammy for Best Compilation Soundtrack Album. Of course, it did.
Yeah, of course it did. Man, all the best music in the world from I don't know the 70s is in this movie. It's so good. This original screenplay. Look, I love that award from an Academy perspective because it says so much about you know the film industry in general. Right? There are films that make a ton of money. There are films that are brilliantly crafted. There are films that are beautifully acted. But an original screenplay award is really telling of how good a story is, how well dialogue is, how people actually speak to each other, and how
Mhm.
you lay that out in a way that is different than a play. It's different than a story that's been like adapted from a book. And so I love that award because usually they don't get it wrong. They didn't get it wrong when they gave it to Cameron Crowe for Almost Famous. It's really impeccably done and crafted, and it tells this really cool story where a lot of things are happening at once, and it in a way that is much more believable and relatable than a lot of coming of age stories, especially ones that deal with rock stars, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to this film, in a film that's basically just dealing about a fictional rock and roll band, which is pretty cool. So let's talk about the movie. Michaela gets opened up, right? Some handwriting here on a yellow legal pad. I love that how they're doing the introduction here for the film. Going through the cast. I really like the misspell Frances McDormand. Have to go back and erase it. That was
Yep.
pretty neat touch. And then we're thrust into this world, and we're meeting William writes, but William's a kid now. He's there with his mom, who seems to be like she's okay, but we find out she's a little bit overbearing, a little bit overprotective, a little bit maybe a little bit in her own head on some of these things, and has a bit of a fight with his sister, played by Zoe Deschanel. Right, they have a big blow up over Simon and Garfunkel. Elaine, come on now, Simon and Garfunkel. I love she like points to their eyes in the picture on the record sleeve. It's like, look, pot. I mean, not wrong, but come on, Simon and Garfunkel.
Fun. So here's the thing. I love this family dynamic so much because we see it and then we hear William talk about it in a very different way and a little bit later in the film. But it's so true. Like the father's not around. You find out that he had died. Elaine is very smart. She's a very smart mother. She's like a professor, but she can't seem to teach either one of her kids the things that she really wants to teach them. And isn't that the way it is for parents, right? You want them to learn something, and so you harp on it so much that they end up doing the opposite. And that's exactly what's happened between Elaine and her daughter. Her daughter is like, I'm going to go off and be a stewardess and travel the world. You can't stop me. I'm now 18, and I'm going to listen to all this amazing music, and I'm going to do all these things. And it's this really contentious relationship that William has found himself in the middle of. He loves his mom. He and her have a very special relationship. He's really smart. And he loves his sister. And so he's very much caught in the middle a lot. And there's this really, the scene where Elaine has to explain to William that he has skipped 2 grades and not just one. And
Hmm.
while he thinks he's 13, he's actually 11. That is like that lays out the entire like weird dynamic of that whole family, right? That she thought she was doing him a favor. She was like, you're going to love it someday. You're going to love it when you're 18 and you've lived this whole life. And William is just like, dude, I really just wish you would have told me because I am expecting to start to shave any minute and all my friends can, and I'm weird at school. And the sister is watching this unfold like, what are you doing, mom? Like it's great.
That's right. Yeah, she Nita has the the most wits about her for sure, but she is going to be off to go do some flight attending, right? But she does leave a present for young William, right? She's like, go, look under your bed, it'll change your life, and that's what he does, right? So he goes and he gets this very good, very great, nostalgic. Scene of him pulling out this like kind of like duffel bag, and it has all these records in it, especially for people who are lovers of music and just flipping through all these classic albums from the late 60s for sure. And then we're going to fast forward just a couple of years, right? William is 15 now, right? I guess if you're looking at the timeline, and he's been writing for his high school newspaper, of course, as you do, as you're an aspiring writer, and has been sending in these articles to kind of this local newspaper magazine right there, kind of in the San Diego area where he's growing up at. And he's going to get picked up from this guy and taken under the wing by none other than Lester Bangs, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's there, has a really great introduction to him at the record or at the radio station, right? And he's pulling out all these different records, making fun of, Jim Morrison. They end up putting, some music on, and he comes in and is going to be getting a bit of an assignment.
Yeah. I did not mean to pick like 2 films in 3 weeks that have Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. Maybe I did actually. I love this opening scene where they first meet because Philip Seymour Hoffman, he looks totally different than he normally does. He looks like Lester Bangs. Lester Bangs was a real person for those of you who don't know. He was a music journalist. He wrote for Cream with 2 E's and
Huey's.
Rolling Stone. And I love it because they form this really weird friendship where obviously Lester is like, I don't know, 35 or 40, and
Mhm.
Will is like 15, but he keeps talking to him. He's like, I just can't, keep talking to you. I need to leave you alone and, go live my life. And then they keep talking and they keep talking. And he's like, fine, go write me an article on Black Sabbath. Like, go do that. See what happens. We'll pay you like 25, $35, something like that. But back then that was a lot of money. And
Yeah.
William is like, yeah, totally. And so he goes and asks his mom. And here's where I find this relationship between the mom and son very different than the mom and the daughter, right? The
Hmm.
mom and the son, she trusts him and she's like, I will let you do this, but you got to respect the curfew, which is strange because he is only 15 and he's going to go to
Hmm.
a Black Sabbath concert. I don't know if my dad would have been like, yeah, that's totally fine. But not before telling him like, don't do drugs and embarrassing him in the parking lot. Like that has to happen,
Yeah.
it's a rite of
Yeah.
passage.
Yeah, telling your son to not do drugs as you're dropping him off in the sea of people going to see a Black Sabbath concert in 1973. Not a good look. Not a good look for William, and not a good look when he shows up right to the venue. He's trying to get in. Of course, his name's not on the list because he's just a kid. No one knows who he is. So he's like, "Go hang out at the top of the ramp with all those girls up there." And he's like, "And then what?" And he slammed the door on his face. But we're going to be introduced then to a pivotal member of our story here. He goes up and he's talking to these girls who he thinks are groupies, but they're not, of course. They're the Band-Aids, and they're led by none other than Penny Lane.
Penny Lane, not her real name. Uh, he is desperate to find out her real name. She like enchants him. She's played by the beautiful and very talented Kate Hudson.
Hmm.
We see her in this coat that she wears throughout the whole movie that is amazing. Gosh, if I could find one that looks like it, I would totally steal it. She is very indignant when he first says you're a groupie. She's like, that is not what we do. We don't sleep with the band. We're in love with the music. That's what we're here for. Like, we might, fool around with them, but we don't sleep. Like, we're not going to give them our hearts because we're really here for the music. And
Hmm.
they end up getting in, like the girls do, the Band-Aids do, because one of the Band-Aids has gotten into the limo that gets into the actual backstage area. So they're forced in. Penny Lane looks at William, who's still not allowed in, and she's like, I'll come back for you if I can. And the first time I saw this, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And then as soon as the door slams, I'm like, she doesn't mean that. She's going to go and find somebody from Black Sabbath and like make out with him and tell him how much she loves her music. She's not going to come back for him. And sure
Hmm.
enough, that's exactly what happens. It's not Penny Lane that saves William. It's William that saves William because there is a band that is late that's supposed to open for Black Sabbath, and they're called Stillwater.
They're called Stillwater. That's right. He approaches them as they're also trying to get into the venue, right? Because the venue is like locked up because the show's supposed to be starting. They're running late, and they find out that he's this young kid, right? Can't be trusted. He's a journalist potentially. Also can't be trusted. Get out of here with your opinions, kid journalist. We don't need
Right.
those. But he softens them up a little bit, right? By talking about the band, how great he thinks their new sounds and new songs are, right? And they're going to be like, oh, okay. Well, I guess this kid could write some good things about us. He can come in with us. So he does. And to Penny Lane's credit, she does come back and find William, right? She gets some pass from Black Sabbath because, like you said, Michaela, you think that she's totally just going to ditch this kid, but no, she has a soft spot in her heart for William there, and he has a a very large spot in his heart for Penny Lane, as we're going to see as this film progresses through the story here. So yeah, so he's on the ends now with Stillwater writes his little bit of an article there, which goes over pretty good, and it gets picked up by none other than Rolling Stone. They catch wind of this new journalist, right? This new rock and roll writer, and they say, "Hey, we liked what you did there. Do you want to do a little bit of a feature on something?" And William says, "Yeah, why don't I follow this Stillwater band around? That'll be good. It'll let me hang out with the band. It'll let me hang out with Penny Lane. What more could a 15-year-old boy want?"
Yeah. What I mean, I don't know. What it sounds like a dream come true, right? Because they're like, yeah, we'll pay you all the expenses. Like, I don't know how Rolling Stone, they must have been rolling in money because who's gonna
They're gonna
do
pay him a
that? I mean,
$1,000.
they're gonna pay him $1,000. That was like $40,000 back then. I don't know. They he's all excited and he's like trying to sound like he's got a deep voice because he's only 15, and somehow that has completely escaped everybody. So Lester Bangs kind of forgets about it. Lester Bangs is like his mentor. He's like, call me when you run into trouble because you're gonna run into trouble. And he keeps talking about how, they're not your friends. Remember that they're not your friends. They're going to want you to write beautiful things about them. And you need to be really honest, right? Be honest and unmerciful, right? Just be accurate and unmerciful. And he's like,
Mhm.
okay, I could do this. And so he's all excited. And then we see the scene where he texts to his mom and he's like, lays it all out for her. And at first she's like, absolutely not. She just says no about a million times. And then she's like, okay, no more than 3 days. No more than one test. No drugs. Oh my gosh. And so it's again for a woman who's incredibly overprotective. She's letting her 15-year-old son go on the road with a rock and roll band. Who would do this? Apparently, Elaine. Elaine does this. I don't know.
Elaine lets him go, for sure, to her credits, right? Even though she is very hesitant about it, as honestly, you probably should, right? Because we get told straight away from Lester that these band people aren't your friends, right? So they're going to seduce you with money, with drugs, with women, with travel, with drinks, all the things, right? But they're not your friends, right? They're not your friends. They're not real friends. So keep an eye out for that. But very seductive to a 15-year-old William for sure, as he's going now on the road with Stillwater, right? So we're going to spend, kind of the next very large portion of the story, right? Going on tour, right? We're on the tour bus. We're interacting with some different members of the bands. Obviously, we're getting to spend more time with Penny Lane, which is good for William. They're starting to develop a little bit of a friendship, right? He's kind of like a shoulder she can lean on to talk and confide in a little bit to teach him the ways of this rock and roll world. Well, he's trying to get the story right, and most of the members of the band are pretty forthcoming, but it's going to have a little bit of a standoff with Russell, right? Russell seems to want to keep things a little bit closer to his chest because it turns out that Russell really thinks he's probably too good for this band, but he knows that if they go and they get famous, he's going to be tied to them forever, and then he's going to be responsible for being the one that helps them, get big houses and fancy cars and all of these things, and then he's just going to be trapped there. So William's a bit standoffish until we go to a house party in Topeka. Is that where that is?
Topeka, yeah, yeah. He gets into this big fight after this t-shirt is produced, right? They've got this manager who seems kind of like a jerk. I'm not a huge fan of him, but he's a friend of Russell's, and he's like, "Hey, I got this. The t-shirts came out," and they look at the shirts, and the shirts show that Russell, who's the guitarist, he's not even the lead singer. Jeff Beebe is the lead singer, and he's not even the lead singer, but he's at the front and everybody else is like out of focus in the
It's like
back. And so
blurred out. Yeah.
yeah, it really makes the lead singer really unhappy. And I love it because Jason Lee plays this guy and he's like really, I don't know, big with his words. And he's like, you need us just as much as we need you. You think you're so great. And he's like, yeah, I should just quit right now. And so he just leaves and they're walking down the side of the road and William's trying to calm him down. And some dude drives up in like a giant, I don't know, I love the car. I'm not going to remember it exactly, but it's like wood paneled. And he's like, do you just want to hang out with some real Topeka people? And of course, Russell has been saying how he wants something real for the last like 30 minutes. So this plays right into his need to go and like party with some kids. And so he, drops acid. He ends up on a roof. He screams he's a golden god before jumping into a pool. It's a real problem. And thank goodness that William is there because William calls the band manager. He's like, I've got him take but we need to leave. He's done so much acid. He thinks that he's going to live there and that's going to be his home. It's really a great scene to watch if you don't want to do drugs because he looks horrible by the end of the night. Like at the beginning, it looks great, but at the end, he's like shivering and they need to like carry him to the bus to get on the bus. And I love that. I love it. And then the next scene on the bus is probably my favorite scene, maybe of the whole movie. I don't know what your feelings are about it, Brian. But they're angry at each other. They're all real mad because they've had this big fight. And he shows up, and Tiny Dancer starts to play on the radio, and the drummer starts to kind of gently drum on the back of the tour bus seat, and they all start to kind of hum and sing. And then by the third chorus of Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer, they're all singing. And it's just one of my favorite scenes because they're all mad, but they all know that they need each other at the same time. And there's no words exchanged. It's just music. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure, because it's the coming like full circle of the previous scene where they're going, when the t-shirt comes out, right? And you have Jeff, right, the lead singer, and Russell, they're the guitarist who is in focus in that, and he's like, should we go ahead and have the blow up now, or should we just start laughing about it now? Because eventually we're going to get to that place, right? So, but then Jeff goes into his little rants about it, justly so. I think
Yeah.
Jeff. So fair enough. But yeah, the band is kind of coming all back together and on their way to the next gig, right? So I love you get kind of these constant like phone calls from Elaine coming in, right? Because William's supposed to be calling like twice a day or something, which seems harder to do in 1973 than it is now for sure. But she's calling, and you get all these kind of funny sort of like little like snippets of him having these phone conversations where like Penny Lane and some of the other band-aids are coming up, and that's like disrupting the conversation, or you have Russell's getting on the phone, or who are like random people are answering the phone when his mom is calling, which is pretty good and much to the horror of Elaine for sure. But the band is on their way right to the next show, and they have a bit of bad luck, right? Is it Russell that gets like electrocuted on stage? That's not great. That's not great. And they get out of there, and you have this high flying new band manager coming in. He's played by Jimmy Fallon. His name is Dennis Hope. Comes in and is like, listen, I need to be like the manager of your manager because your manager doesn't know what he's doing, but I can get you out there. I can help you make money. We can sell more records. We can get to more shows. I can get you on an airplane, which is going to be important for later in the story. But the band now is off and high flying, right? So they went from like a mid-level band that was just going, kind of through the motions, right? Building a little bit of a fan base. But now the band's going to start capitalizing on a little bit of the success, and that's going to kind of play in to the story, to the relationship between Penny and the band, and therefore William and Penny.
Yeah. William and Penny. So again, Penny's this enigma. She always knows what to say. She has this really great moment in the car with William where she basically says, look, don't let them hurt you. If you don't get hurt, if you don't care, then they can't hurt you. And if you can't get hurt, then you're always having a good time. And if you ever get lonely, just go to the record store and visit your friends. It's probably one of my favorite lines of the whole movie. It's really great. But she is like this enigmatic, like beautiful, like siren that walks into every room and always knows what to say. And everyone's always happy to see her. She shows up at these hotels, and she shows up, and she's been asked to kind of hang out with Russell. Russell has taken a liking to her. And what we realize is that they have this very unhealthy, probably one-sided relationship where she gives him her soul and he thinks she's really cool when it's convenient to think she's really cool. He probably likes her a little bit, but
when his
not
girlfriend's
enough.
not there.
Yeah, when his girlfriend's not there, it's fine. And it's really hard because William doesn't know what to do about that. And again, this goes back to how amazing this script is, because he could be telling her all these things. But he's very smart, and he's trying to get her to see it so he doesn't have to hurt her because he loves her in like the most basic, real sense. He doesn't want to be the one to see her face fall when she realizes that she's being completely used, right? And she's like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. But she actually is not fine at all in the scene where he has to explain to her that Russell has basically traded all of the Band-Aids for a case of beer and and $50 because all of these girls need to be gone by the time they get to San Diego.
To New York, yeah, to New York.
To New York, yeah. Because
that's where
all the girlfriends
wives and
coming
girlfriends
into
are going to
town.
be there, yeah.
Right. And so they're like, yeah, you guys need to go away. And Russell tries to explain it because he sees William is not into this plan and thinks that it's gross. But he's like, hey, and no one wants to go home. Everybody, they were still in everything's fine. They all know. And it's like, I don't think they know, dude. And of course, Penny, when she finds out that she was basically traded for a case of beer and $50, she has this most beautiful reaction, and it's heartbreaking because she's laughing and crying, and she just wipes this tear from her face with the opposite hand, and she's like, well, what kind of beer? like that would somehow make it better that it was and then just kind of giggles, and it's so heartbreaking because she's done the thing that she told everybody not to do, which is like really care about this person, right?
It's really care, yeah. Yeah, she wears that coat you were talking about earlier, and those sunglasses almost as like a suit of protective armor, because you see her in those most of the time when she's around the band, but when she's with William, she's not. She's typically not wearing the sunglasses. She's not wearing the coat. So so she's a little bit more vulnerable to him, and he's actually seeing it there, and we're going to get kind of the ultimate scene of that vulnerability and kind of what happens, right, when you get lured into this world of drugs and sex and rock and roll as they go, and they go to New York, right? And Penny Lane, can't leave well enough alone. You get sold for $50 and some beer to another band. You're gonna, decide you're gonna go to New York anyway, right? So maybe you'll go and you run into David Bowie. I really like she has a really great kind of interaction with William there when the band is kind of arriving to their hotel, and he sees Penny kind of standing off, kind of in the shadows more or less, and they have a little bit of a conversation. And she says, "Oh, I can probably introduce you to Bowie." And he's like, "Do you know any real people?" And she says, "Well, famous people are more interesting," which really kind of lays into the mindset of what Penny Lane is wanting to achieve, I guess, at this point in her life, right? So you get the scene then of them at dinner, right? The girlfriend's there, Penny is there. They end up having a little bit of a confrontation, I guess. Not really. She kind of makes her presence known, right? Which is not great. And William kind of chases her out of there. Get a great scene of him like running up the city, like he's just gonna find her, like in New York City, right? This huge city. But he does. He goes back to the hotel, and she's there. But unfortunately, she's taken quite a few quaaludes, which is not great. Not great for Penny. And is not going to go very well. But luckily, William is there to call down to the front desk, get some doctor's assistance there. A little problematic on the kiss, maybe. I don't know, but
I mean, yeah, look, see, I don't know. I'm probably going to sound super hypocritical. In this instance, I didn't think it was that bad, but you're probably right. I mean, he's using this moment. She's not fully conscious to tell, and he's like, I want to tell you that I love you. To be fair, he wasn't gonna, I don't think he was kissing her with an intention to like, I don't know, do anything more. He just loved her. I don't know. It's probably not good. You're right. Don't do that. Don't make sure someone's
don't do
sober
that.
when you kiss them, and make sure they say yes. Consent is important, but I don't know. I kind of, you gloss over that because he's also trying to save her life.
Mhm.
I don't know. They play that really interestingly, and what I find super I don't know. I replayed this scene a couple of times because it struck me in a very different way seeing it just recently than seeing it the first time. And that is when the doctors arrive and we've got the music and kind of overplaying while they pump her stomach and get her to throw up. And he's watching this whole thing, and he's watching with like a fascination, and he doesn't look overly scared, but he is just kind of watching this whole thing kind of unravel in front of him. And then she seems to be, okay. And they have this moment where they're walking around in New York in Central Park, and she kind of shares with him something actually real from her, which is her name, which is
Mhm.
not Penny Lane. Surprise. Spoiler. It's not.
Which is
Like
not Penny
late,
Lane.
like Lady Mayberry or something.
Yeah, is lady something. Yeah, for sure. They have kind of this final, interaction between the two of them, right? And it's finally the most honest she has been with him throughout this film, right? So she keeps kind of, hinting at, things throughout the film, but finally there opens up, and they're talking. Williams like, well, we're from the same town. Why don't we should, hang out, or we should do something. We could, we don't have to be in this rock and roll world to coexist, right? We could do that at home. We're from the same place. And kind of one of the recurring themes throughout this film is she's been talking about going to Morocco, right? Moving to Morocco and living as a free spirit there. And maybe that's something that's going to happen, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen now, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen with William, because William has been harkened back to the Rolling Stone offices, right? They're like, send over everything that you got, right? You should do that, and he does. So they're like, get back here so we can start putting this story together. And the band is coming up on one of their final gigs, so they're in the airplane on their way to I forget where they're going to I don't know, somewhere, but they end up having to make an emergency landing because their plane runs into a bit of trouble, which is basically where you have your It's not like really an airing of grievances. It's a on your deathbed sort of thing. Making your confessions to everyone in the band. I like everyone's saying that they all slept with everyone's significant others and all this
Right,
stuff.
right.
The and all of that, and you finally get this kind of final blow up between William and uh, Russell, right? Where
Yeah.
he's kind of laying it all out for Russell that he's been a jerk and he's sick of it.
Yeah, I love the way he does it too, because Russell and Jeff are getting into it about how, Jeff slept with Russell's girlfriend, but Russell slept with Penny forever. And he's like, you are horrible. And, she loved you and she loved the music and you treated her horrible. And I love her. And he says it like 3 times. It's so sweet. Like it's this innocence where he could call this guy a bunch of names. He could, say a bunch of things that are so much worse and he doesn't. It's really beautiful script writing at its best. I am an over the top person. And so I'm always just amazed at the reserve that people actually speak with. and it's captured so beautifully at this, right? At the end of the plane ride, they land safely in, I guess, Tupelo, Kansas is where they do their emergency landing, but nobody's okay getting off this plane. Like they're all glad to be alive, but it's no one's talking to each other. Russell's girlfriend won't look at Jeff or Russell. She's like, I'm done with both of you.
William throws
But
up.
William throws up. He's like, oh God, we almost died. And Russell kind of looks at William and says, write whatever you want, because William really has to go home. I have no idea how long this tour has lasted, but it's been way more than like the 2 days that he was originally going to
Hmm.
go on tour with them for.
Right.
He's missed his graduation. He's missed a bunch of tests. He's missed all these things. And he needs to go to the Rolling Stone office in San Francisco and like finish this piece out. And this is where it gets really tough for me, because he is like a 15-year-old kid. So at first they're like amazed, and then they just kind of chew him up and spit him out. The girl who's like the fact checker, she's totally rude to him like the entire
Hmm.
time. And I don't understand why. She's like, you're just a fan. You don't know what you're doing. And he's like, no, I'm this, I know what just give me a day and I can put it all together. You told me to send what I had. And I love that he stands up for himself, but it's
Hmm.
really tough to watch this uh, business basically take advantage of a 15-year-old. I really didn't. I mean, it's probably exactly how it went down, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's fair, right? You're the top publication for this genre of storytelling of journalism there, and you have this 15-year-old kid, right? So what could he possibly know? He did send all over all of his stuff on these like yellow sticky notes and stuff, which is probably agitating if your job is to like compile all of this stuff and fact check it. So I can understand, right? She's like, oh, this kid was just totally along for the ride. I see where she's coming from. I totally get it. And then to further that, she calls to fact check, and the band is like, "Oh yeah, none of that stuff is true. That kid totally lied on all that stuff." So what are they to believe, right? A Rolling Stone, you gotta fact check your stuff. Be honest out there in your journalism, right? So obviously can't publish it. So the band doesn't get their front cover story there. They don't get their big story, and they end up going with something else, much to Williams' dismay, which is really the heartbreaking part. I don't know, you can't fault Rolling Stone, but you got to fault the band, right? Not only did they totally throw this kid under the bus, they also ruined like any potential for future career that he has, right? That's not great. So bad luck there, bad luck there. But he is finally going to go home. He has a very, very chance encounter with his sister. Very convenient chance encounter with his sister there as he's sitting at the airport. And the family is going to go home and be reunited, and it feels so good.
It does feel so good. I really like that, where she's like, I'll take a couple days. I'll go anywhere in the world. And he's like, are you sure? And he wants to go home. And so the mom is so happy to see her son, but she is like overwhelmed to see her daughter, which is so cool. They share this hug. Elaine is like, I forgive you. And she's like, I didn't apologize. And then they kind of laugh about it, where it's not okay, but it's going to be okay. You feel like it's on the way to being okay somehow. They just
Hmm.
kind of forgive each other for being who they are. It makes you wonder, because again, the father died. And there's a moment where Elaine looks at Anita, or they're in the car and Elaine is talking to her son about how great he is. And she's like, well, what about me? And she looks at Anita and says, you are ungrateful of my love. Like you're disobedient and ungrateful of my love. And that's got to be really hard. I mean, I think Anita probably had some serious pain, right? And that was
Hmm.
why that her mom, and her mom didn't see it. And you don't really dive into that much in the film, but it's so beautifully displayed in this scene where they kind of reconnect and get back, and they all kind of sit around a table and eat and laugh. It's really, really beautiful. And at the same time, Russell is like eating, I don't know, a box of, he's eating cereal downstairs, and one of the band-aids is like chastising him. He's like, you weren't there for Penny. Penny could have died. Thank God William was there, and he's in love with Penny. And you know how you repaid him by saving this girl that you didn't care about, that you should have cared about? You totally lied and told the Rolling Stone magazine that none of it was true. Like, shame on you. And Penny knows that, and she doesn't like you, and she sees right through you, and he feels really bad. And so Russell, like, I don't know, decides to call Penny up, who's now back at home, kind of licking her wounds as well, right? Like everybody's kind of separated at this point. And
Hmm.
Russell calls her, and he's trying to like say all the right things and be like, I'm not me without you. And this is where the true colors of Penny really come out, because this whole time I am kind of on the fence. She likes William, and she likes to feel good around William, and they share these moments together where she is very real with him. But at the end of
Hmm.
the day, she doesn't see William the way that he wants her to see him. She's certainly not in love with him. She's in love with Russell. She's in love with this musical band idea.
Hmm.
But she does the right thing. And when he says, I want to come visit, she doesn't say anything, but gives him William's address instead of
William's
her
address,
own.
yeah. Hmm.
And he doesn't know any better, because we didn't have Google back then, So
Right.
he shows up, and he's like, where's Penny? And the mom she's so, I love her. She eviscerates him. I love it so much.
She does. I really like this kind of final section of the film, because you see Russell sitting. He's in like, I don't know, like the basement of some, I don't know, club or concert venue or something, and he's sitting there all alone. And you don't like, they don't really like make mention of the fact or give you any sort of insight, but it felt like to me like he was there by himself. That either the band had broken up, or they were, completely now on non-speaking terms, right? The last time we saw them interacting was on that plane where they were, basically having their truth-telling moments there, and he's there, and all of the other, kind of band-aids and things are, walking by him, kind of giving him scorn, right? And there he's told by Sapphire to, to make amends, right? To step up and do the things that you should have done in the first place. And then yeah, he shows up to the house, there to William's house, and he kind of goes in. I really like. I would have thought that his sister, right, might have been a little bit more starstruck, but now she's pretty cool. She's a pretty cool character. Anita there, not her first trip there as a stewardess to the stars, probably, right? And Elaine, mom does give him a bit of a hard time. She goes back, and they have their final kind of chat, right? William and Russell, and William pulls out the tape recorder, and he finally gets that interview that Russell had kept putting off and off and off over the course of the film. And what do you love most about music, Russell? Well, to start with, everything, he says. And then that's kind of where the film ends, right? You get them, you get Penny is going, she's buying her plane ticket to Morocco, so she's off to pursue the life that she'd, yeah, at least had told William that she'd always wanted. We don't get sort of any sense about what happens to her from there, but that's okay. That's okay. And that is the story of Almost Famous. It's a coming of age story. It's a rock and roll story for sure. It's kind of an examination of these relationships and things, and really it's kind of a deep dive into the things that Lester Bangs has mentored down to William throughout this, right? That's as seductive and sexy as the world of rock and roll was. They're trying to change it now, and that can be good, that can be bad, but it's a siren song, so don't fly too close to the sun, young William.
Indeed, indeed. Um, yeah, so I mean, what I find interesting is the band, apparently they stay together. They do another tour, No More Airplanes,
No More Airplanes tour.
1974,
Yeah.
which is cool. They get their cover because Russell does call Rolling Stone and say it was all true, my bad, and somehow all is forgiven. And that's great.
Plot
Um,
hole. No way Rolling Stone would go back on that. I don't think.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had such a great opportunity. They had put a bunch of work into it. So I guess maybe if
That's
they
true.
fact checked
Yeah,
it and
that's
said,
true.
hey,
Maybe.
it's actually true. It's just really sensational and it's going to make us all look bad and we're okay with it. I don't know. They probably would be like, well, if you're willing to go on the record and say that it was, then we're going to take advantage of all the money we've spent and do it. I don't know. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It was the '70s. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Who
I don't
knows what
know.
they would have
I don't
done?
know.
But yeah, this film, it came out. I remember seeing it in the theater. I was real young, and I was like a Penny Lane. I was very starstruck by Russell at first, and really feeling really sorrowful and kind of like Williams, like the kid brother that
Hmm.
doesn't want to be seen as a brother. He's really protective and quiet, in love with this enigmatic siren chick. Um, you know, I don't know. This film really affected me, and the music that they pick with it for it is absolutely incredible. It's an amazing soundtrack. If you've not taken your time to just listen to the soundtrack in and of itself, I really highly recommend going to do that.
Hmm.
It captures this time in from the mind from the viewpoint of a young person coming of age in a way that no other film has, no other story has, and I think that's why it's still super compelling, and well beloved, even 20 some odd years later.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. We would have been like almost uh, we'd have just graduated high school, I think, when this
Yep.
came out. It came out in the fall there of 2000, so we would have been near high school graduates. So we would have been approximately the same age of William, who was 15 in the movie, but was led to believe for half of his life anyway that he was 2 years older than he really was. So very mature 15-year-old. We don't ever, I think, get like a confirmed age for Penny Lane, but presumably she's probably, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, meant to be probably somewhere in that range is my guess there for her. So kind of would have fit in timeline wise with where we were at in our own lives when this came out. And yeah, following on the footsteps of Jerry Maguire there. The soundtrack is amazing. I listened to it as I was doing the cocktail. That's what I did there for the cocktail for this one. I got the old record out and listened
Yeah.
to it. So that was a pretty good time. And yeah, it was just great to going back to it. I haven't watched this in quite a while, and I think that it's inspiring on one hand because I think, like any good sort of coming of age story, you're seeing things if you're watching it, as a younger person, right? You're really seeing that story through, William's eyes or Penny Lane's eyes, I think. And now, as we're older, Michaela, you watch it back and you're seeing things, more from like Russell's point of view or Lester's point of view or the mother's point of view in the story, and kind of the story remains the same, but your perspective on it changes, which is the case for really good coming of age stories, and that is definitely what this is for sure. There are a lot of great lines in this, like really really great lines. Alluded to the fact that everyone knew the Jerry Maguire lines because they were bombastic and they were fun and they were fun to say on commercials and Saturday Night Live, but the lines in this are like very affecting. It's so well written, especially the stuff that Lester's talking about. It seems like every time Philip Seymour Hoffman comes on, he has just some like super like meaningful, very very important and impactful line for us the viewers, and obviously William in the story. So it's so well written, and like I said, it's about this time and place that is romanticized by a lot of people who love music and love the idea of this, kind of rock and roll, larger than life kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't think I'm going to be able to say anything more more than what you just said, and it's certainly not as eloquently. It's good. It's a really special film. It's captured my heart. I love the relationship dynamics in this. We've got this unrequited love. You've got this kid growing up. You've got this relationship between a son and a mother, a daughter and a mother. You've got a relationship that's very unhealthy between Russell and Penny Lane. And how she's got to kind of grow from that as well, and how she handles that. Having been that person who like consensually is used and then regrets being consensually used because you knew that you were being used. Gosh, nobody does that better than Kate Hudson's Penny Lane. I mean, it's so good. Her heartbreak is just completely wrenching and wonderful. And I love all of those things against the backdrop of, a time where I wasn't alive. So it's very romanticized to me. Everybody looks beautiful. Drugs are bad, but nobody's we don't see the negative side effects of drugs other than the one drug scene with the Quaaludes. So it's still
Mhm.
very like light and airy in that way. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant film.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of times you get stories that are set kind of in this time period, especially about rock bands and things like that, and it becomes a story that is all about use, or a story that is all about, these groupies and affairs that these band members are having, or the infighting in the band. And this band certainly addresses all of those things, but it doesn't become about that. It always stays as Williams' story through this thing, as kind of the outsider, like literally looking in as he's along on this journey. So that is Almost Famous. So let us know at home what you think about Almost Famous. If you saw it back when it came out in 2000, or if you've watched it recently, and let us know if you make an Almost Famous cocktail, because you should. It is delicious, and we want to see pictures of it. So send us pictures. Send us all your feedback on the social medias. That's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and X and Threads and Blue Sky, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of the cocktail that we made, episode recaps, all that stuff, you can do that on our website. It's www.drinkthemovies.com. Go there. You can follow along. It has links to all the things like our Patreon. We do our Patreon hangouts once a month. We do bonus episodes. We do bonus like cocktail episodes when we get a chance to do those. So check that out. It's a great way to support the podcast, and we appreciate our patrons over there. It is patreon.com/drink the movies. So go check that out. We appreciate that a lot. And make sure you check out our shop if you want to get some Drink the Movies merch. It's drinkthemovies.square.site to go check that out. Grab yourself a hat. That'll be good when you're hitting the road with Stillwater. So, Michaela, if they want to stay up to date with what we've got going on podcast wise, maybe leave us a review. That'd be good. Maybe get us into Rolling Stone. I don't know. Where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are distributed and supported. Yeah, leave us a 5-star review. If you're liking what you're hearing, share all the stuff with us on social media. We can't do this without our listeners, and we're so grateful to each and every one of you for being part of our Drink the Movies community. Sharing reviews like that really helps us get more Drink the Movies goodness out there, and that's pretty cool. We're pretty grateful for that. So thanks.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time on
Drink
Drink
the
the
Movies.
Movies.
I'm so glad you were home. I'm always home. I'm uncool.
That whole thing is great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you,
so good.